Figma a little bit more, but at the moment I've realized it's come across a little bit, probably just creepy. But it's made now and we're gonna have to live with it. So sign up to the course. I'll see you in there. Hello, you made it in. Congratulations. Welcome to the course. First things first is you need to download the exercise files. There'll be a link on this page here. Download those. In those exercise files will be the files we'll use for the course, but also there'll be a shortcut sheet. Okay, we won't go too deep into mad shortcuts here, but there are just some super useful ones that you'll need to know by the end of the course. So print that sheet out and you can circle the ones you really like. Also, you need a version of Figma. Okay, so Figma, go to figma.com, either use the browser version, so sign up, use the browser version, or download the desktop version. There is absolutely nothing, no difference between the two. I'm going to use the desktop version because I'm old and I like things being on my desktop for no good reason, because they're exactly the same, so it doesn't matter. You'll also know from only watching a tiny bit of my video that I talk fast. I've had a lot of coffee. It's early. I do slow down. Okay, but if you find that I speak very fast, okay, or maybe English isn't your first language and you find my accent a little tough, there will be, on all the videos, there's like a little cog, where is it, down there, and you'll be able to click that and slow me down to a slower version. I sound a little weird, but it might make it easier for you. And that is it. Free version, paid version. We are going to use the free version for most of the course, mainly because it's amazing. Like, it's amazing what Figma have decided to allow it to be free versus what is paid. Towards the end of the course, I will show you why you might want to jump up to the paid, but you can get quite far as like a professional designer using the free version, but I will show the perks for paid later on. Also, Figma is always updating, which is amazing to me as a designer. It means new features come out all the time. They rejig things to make it simpler and easier and include more advanced features. It is really painful for me as an instructor because basically I know this. As soon as I finish recording this course, they're going to go and shuffle some bits around. So keep an eye out for that. If it's fundamental stuff, I'll re-record the videos. If it's just small stuff, just take a look. Often it can be just a name change. It's in the same place, does the same job, but maybe they've called it something else or clarified it a little bit. Also check the comments below. Either I'll leave a comment if it's just a small change, or other students will as well. So just keep an eye out on that. Yay for lots of updates. Boo for lots of updates. All right, let's get on to the next video. All right, let's talk about what Figma is for and what it's not for. It is amazing at rapid prototyping of things like websites and apps. Okay, it does do other things, which we'll cover a little bit, but it is the main tool of a UX or UI designer, okay? And their role in the creation of either wireframes, which we'll do in this course, okay, of really quick kind of look and feel for an app or a website, through to kind of like really, like, it looks exactly like a website, high fidelity mock-ups of this website with interactivity as well, okay? And this kind of leads me to where it doesn't do. You can make something that looks very like a website, enough so that you can go out to testing. And that's probably the best bit about Figma and UX in general, is that we'll create something and then we'll actually be able to get it in the hands of the client, the intended audience, okay, our customers, and they can, it's not gonna be complete, okay, but they'll be able to use it enough that we can make some observations and actually test some theories about what, they think, what the users want. And if things need to be changes, we can change them really quickly in Figma and then get them back to them, like while they're sitting there. Okay, so it is about rapid prototyping, quick, changes, and get to a point where you're like satisfied with the website or the app and you're like, this has gone through a bit of user testing, client's happy with it. Now, this is where Figma doesn't do anything else, okay? It is just the prototype. It's not gonna code the website for you or the app, okay? It hands over little pieces to the developer to use, okay? CSS and SVGs and graphics and stuff, but not a lot that the developer can use. They'll end up kind of starting from scratch using your mockups, okay? And they'll use a lot of things like spacing and they'll make it look like your app, okay? But That's what Figma doesn't do, okay? It doesn't do the coding side. So what you do is you get it kind of signed off with the client, and then you either work with a developer. If you're a developer yourself, you start coding it, or you might start, like if you might get into HTML and CSS. I got a course on that. If you want to start doing your own stuff, okay? Or you might be using something like WordPress or Webflow, okay? I've got courses on the horizon for both of those too, or Wix, or something more drag and drop, okay? You'll then have to build it based on your Figma mockup that it's a lot faster to do, then go and build it either in one of those tools or code it. So that's what it is. Rapid prototyping, okay? And what it's not is you're not gonna have a complete site at the end. That's a question I get asked a lot. So next video. Actually, I forgot one thing. Don't go away. Editor, don't cut it. What else is it getting used for? Figma is getting used a lot for like just regular or graphic design. Mainly in the digital space, so like social media campaigns. There's some amazing things. You'll see it as you go through the course. You'll be like, this would be really handy for doing Instagram story posts or carousels or a bunch of different sizes for ads. It is getting really good at that. It doesn't do very good print stuff. You can put a normal page into it. You can say A4 or US letter. Okay, so people are using it as an alternative for something like maybe Illustrator and a bit of Photoshop. Photoshop's still required, but you'll see it's made for designing websites and apps, but people are using it for all sorts of other stuff now. It's coming, not a general design tool, but know that you will find some people using it a lot more for things that it's not meant to, but it does it just perfect. All right, so that's what it is. That's what it isn't. Now this is the end. Cut. All right, let's talk about what UI versus UX is. If you already know, you're allowed to skip this video. It's okay. And this is not going to be a very like detailed, just give you an understanding of like the differences between the two, because it comes up a lot. So UI design, the simple way, this is all very simple. Okay, the UI, user interface, versus UX, the user experience. Okay, the UI is the way something looks, and the UX is how it works, how somebody uses it. Okay, so often the way it looks, how it's used. Now in terms of being a UI designer, like UI designer is in charge, like up until UX became part of my life, and a lot of us, it's kind of newish. I did a lot of UI design. I designed a website, and it was based a lot on my intuition, like, oh, buttons should be this big, and it should be over here, and traditionally things go over here in the nav. Okay, so there was a lot of that, and I'd give it to the client, they'd like it, great. Okay, but there was a big element missing, the UX, okay? There was very little testing, okay? I had an idea of what would work, okay? But it was totally an idea. It was like a hypothesis of how it should work. And the UX part of being a UX designer is taking that kind of UI, okay, that layout, and getting it in the hands of clients and testing it, okay? That part of it turns you from just a UI designer into the beginnings of a UX designer, is getting it out there and actually testing that. Did it work? Did it do exactly, what I hoped it would do? Is the client, when they click this button, did they go where they expected, or were they surprised? Okay, is the language, like, let's say a UI designer designs the button, okay, and the rounded corners and the beautiful gradient, okay, or the text in the middle. Okay, the UX designer says, that's great, let's go and test that, and says, is it big enough? Can they click on it? Is there enough contrast? Is it accessible for people maybe that are visually impaired? Okay, it is, is the hierarchy of buttons, is this one too big? Because it feels like it should be doing something else. There's a lot of that side of thing is the UX. Now, in all honesty, this course is based mostly around UI design, because we're learning Figma. Figma is the creation of these things. The testing side of stuff, I'll give you some insights as we go along about what I would do at different testing phases, okay? But it is broader than what can be covered in this course, okay? But we'll do UI with a little bit of UX, okay? But Figma basically is we're learning software. That's why you signed up, probably. Okay, so it doesn't make you instantly a UX designer. The UX part is taking it further than just moving pixels around on the screen, is like giving it out there and getting it tested and changing things and testing things. That's UX. My little example that I'm kind of running through at the moment, it's my bank updated its website and its app, and it looks beautiful. The UI, amazing. The UX is terrible. Okay, I'm sure it went through some testing. I imagine it went through lots of testing. Not right at the end though, because it's just simple things. Like, let's say that I'm typing in my password, type, hit enter. Enter. Nope, you got to get the mouse and click the enter button. So I'm like, why, in code, it's not hard, I can't remember what it's called. When you get to the end, it will know that when you press enter, you mean this button here. So that's just one thing. Okay, another thing, you go into like I went to update a person in my standing orders, like a direct debit, or I'm not sure what you call it in your country, but a regular payment that I'm making. Okay, so I went to find how to edit it. I'm like, I have to delete it because I couldn't find anywhere. And I'm tech savvy. I know how to use computers. I'm like, couldn't find it. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I have to delete it. And I've been doing this a few times. I was like, I'm going to email them. And they're like, oh, you just got to click the name of the person to edit it. I'm like, well, that seems simple. Go in, have a look. And you do. If you click the name of the person, it does go in to edit it. But it's missing a couple of things. Any sort of indication that that's possible. Underline, arrow, big sign, tooltip. Nope. And the other weird thing about it is, when your mouse is kind of moving along, and when you go over something clickable, it turns into the little hand. It doesn't do that. You just click it with the arrow and hope for the best, like start clicking everything. That must be hard to turn that thing off. Somehow it's off. There is 1,000,001 of those little things. It's just come out. But I do have a problem with it. Anyway, I'm burbling. And red, won't do red again. This feels very ominous. My little colored light. I just bought the colored light. You're going to see it all the way through this course until I get sick of it. But yeah, that's my UX story at the moment. You'll have them as well. And that's the kind of thing, if you're new to UX, is keep those ideas open. Like, they're terrible and they're a pain in the butt, but it's kind of language and stuff that you're gathering as a designer so that when you're working, you can avoid some of those things, or at least, when it comes back from testing, you're not surprised. You're like, oh yeah, that thing that I hate as well is in this thing. So UI UX, that's my explanation for the moment. All right, next video. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at what we're making. Okay, we are going to start making some wireframes initially. Okay, then we will make some high fidelity versions, okay, that look a little prettier. That one's actually pretty messy. Let's look at this one here. Okay, see the screens down the bottom. Okay, so we're going to work on these. We're going to build styles, components, all sorts of goodness. Let's have a look at one of the mock-up versions. So yeah, it's this is going to be what we make. We'll design it, we'll add some interactivity, we'll make a form, people can purchase stuff. It's going to follow our brief, both our persona and our task flow. So let's talk about what those things are. So we are going to focus on the software of Figma, but I will throw in some kind of general UX design advice for people that are quite new. So what are we working to? We've got a company called Scott Headphones that wants us to design a few pages for this task flow. The task flow here, in this case, is they want a home page that goes to some features about the product. That product can be added to a checkout, and then once the credit card details are filled in, confirmations. So that's what they've asked us to build. They've given us a persona. So let's quickly talk about what a persona is. So this is just a bare bones kind of persona. They can run to one whole page, two whole pages, but this is going to be enough for this particular course. And what is it for? So I'll read it out. You can read, but our ideal customer is a woman named Sarah. Sarah's in her 20s. She has a bachelor's degree. She works for herself. She's married with kids, and she lives in Ireland. She has never bought anything like this before, and some of her concerns is that she is very environmentally and waste conscious. So why do we have a persona? It's to allow us to be specific, okay? Not specifically to Sarah herself. Sarah is representative of a type of person, okay? A group of people that are going to be using this website. And it helps me distance myself. Otherwise, I end up building things that I would like, okay, based on my own history and the way I know the product. So this gives me boundaries. Otherwise, you end up either designing for yourself or for everybody, and then nobody wins, okay? Because you end up with this generic thing that doesn't actually work for the target audience. So our persona helps us define that audience. It also helps when you are dealing with the client or stakeholders as well, because you can detach your own kind of personal preferences. Like I want brush script, they want Times New Roman. But what does Sarah want? Like, we need to have empathy for her and her situation and her experience with the product. And it helps with those conversations to be separated from what Dan likes as the designer, what the client likes as her or himself. And let's talk about what's right for Sarah. And that's through to like color, fonts, language, types of imagery, organization of information, like what features should be shown earlier based on, you know, some of the preferences she has and some of the knowledge of the product. Now, this is just like a super quick overview of persona. We're kind of learning UX design here in Figma. Okay, a UX researcher, okay, will spend a lot more time and potentially produce, a lot more documentation around and understand Sarah a lot more than kind of what we've done here. So I guess that's a kind of a broad overview if you're new. And if you are new, my advice to you is to spend some time, okay, now or after this course, researching personas, what they're for, okay, so to get a better understanding and just know that this is a very simplified version of it, but good for what we need for this course. Now, task flow, if you haven't heard of it before, okay, task flow here, we've been given, instead of designing all of the mobile website, we've been asked to design a certain kind of important critical feature. Okay, so we have to design this homepage, shows the products, or the product features, a checkout page, and a confirmation page. So this is a nice simple task flow. They can be a bit more complicated. Okay, they can be less complicated. It might be like, task flows could include things like how does a person cancel this product? What is the process there? Okay, you might be designing the cancellation process. Maybe it's the sign up process. Maybe it's how to change your password, how to download or upload a document. It might be a specific thing that needs to be done on your particular app or website. So that's considered a task flow. And also, actually, let's throw in this other term, kind of his buddy. So task flow versus user flows comes up quite a bit. Okay, there's this great article here by Erica Hirano. I'll put a link on the screen here, but after this video or after this course, do spend a bit more time understanding these, but I'll give you the brief rundown. So basically task flow, let's have a look. They've got the pancake task flow. So I'm gonna look at this finding a recipe version. Okay, very simple, kind of like what we're doing in our course. Homepage, search for pancakes, search results, find the super banana pancake recipe. Simple task flow, it's step by step, it's sequential, kind of linear, whereas a task flow, okay, is a lot more complex. Let's have a look at this one. So this one here, can you see, we end up with it's the same kind of process. So you start at the home page and you end up with super banana pancake, but there's a lot more ways of getting there. There's more than one option, which we know is always the case. Like this option is like the big one here. The first one is, are they going to use the search bar at all? Our task flow up above, okay, assumed using the search option, but there is going to be, your persona might not be a search bar kind of person. Okay, and they're going to go this way. So no, they're not going to use the search bar. So then we're going to have to build out and mock up, okay, the browsing the categories. And there's a breakfast category. And then there's a breakfast page. Okay, and they're finding pancakes within that breakfast page. And then they click on the recipe that they want. Okay, and they've ended up back at the same place, but it's a different way of getting there. Okay, you can see the key up here. There's decision nodes, okay, the different shapes, okay, for different actions. Okay, these are our pages. These are interactions between the user and the interface, and these are decisions. And I've got the start and stop there. So user flows are more complex, show different options. So you've got to make sure that you are designing for the right thing. If you're designing a user flow, it's going to have more to it and a bigger job, whereas a task flow can be quite a simple boundaried option. Now you will have task flows within this user flow. Can you still see our homepage, search results, banana is still there. Okay, it's just kind of baked into this more complex or different pathway that the user might follow. A user flow will help you find more things like any sort of dead ends or where people get stuck in a loop or don't know where to go anymore. Okay, so yeah, that's the brief user flow versus task flow. Another thing to mention is that we've been asked to design a mobile website version of this, not an app. So an app, you just have, the one mobile size screen. Okay, because it's a mobile website, it means you're probably going to have to design out not only the mobile version, but maybe a tablet and a desktop version as well. So that can often catch you out when you're new and you're like, somebody asks you to design a desktop website, you're going to have to, the developer's going to want to see what, how the site breaks down to a mobile version or up into a desktop version. So take that into account. But our focus here is the mobile version. And lastly, this is a pretty bare bones in terms of, we've got a persona, we've got a company name and a task flow, but often a brief can be a lot bigger than this, okay? Like designing a whole website. And sometimes you can get a lot of details around it. Okay, so for me as a designer, what would be hard with this particular one is how much do I know about Scott headphones? Not very little at this stage. Okay, I'd like to talk to them, or have my product manager talk to them, or whoever's in charge talk to them about, what they're about, what are their values, what is their mission, to help me kind of help with this persona to kind of build another level on there. And sometimes you won't get that information, okay, and sometimes you will. If you get given something from a bigger company, they're probably going to have values and mission statement, okay? So you can go off and find that and add that to your kind of tool set when you are designing this thing to have better conversations with the stakeholders when you are referencing what you're doing versus where they're going as a company. Equally, you're going to get jobs where there is no values and there is no mission and they haven't really thought about it, and you're going to have to, do your best with what you've got, and as you get more experienced, push back for those types of things. It's probably conversations that I want to have more and more, the more experienced I get, like not just a persona, but like, why are we doing this? Where is the direction we're going? Okay, who am I helping? Why are we helping? To really influence my design work. But anyway, this is a good starting point for this course. Let's move on. Hi everyone, it is time for your very first bit of home. We're not going to call it homework. We're going to call it class projects. They're here to, you can ignore them. You totally can, but it will really help you solidify what we've learned. And my goal is so that you can create something through this course that is unique from the course material that I'm making, okay, that is great for your own portfolio. Okay, so the first one is to create your own brief. So we saw in the last video that I made a brief. Where is my brief? So that's my one. What I want you to do is go to this website that we've just created here. Okay, so randomprojectgenerator.com. Okay, I want you to enter your last name or your pet's name, okay, or a friend's last name, somebody's name, okay, for the company, and enter your location. Rio was where I was born. You can put in, Ireland as a country. If you're in a big country, put in your state or town, whatever it is. Okay, so, and then click Generate My Project. Okay, make sure you're on the UX UI tab there and click Generate My Project, and you should get something unique for you. Okay, so I've got shadow surfboards. Ooh, it's kind of cool. Okay, and so this gets randomly generated. Do not hit retry. The red button is red. I just want you to pick the first one you got, even if you're like, okay. Some of the more tricky objects, okay, and tricky personas is one of those things that will really help build you as a designer. Okay, don't hit it. And yeah, have a little read through. So you're going to get something unique, and it's going to be unique in some ways, as in the company name and the product, but the actual thing we'll build together will all be the same kind of structure. So we'll follow the same task flow. You're going to use homepage, product features, checkout, and confirmation, whatever the product is. And it just means though that when you do start following along, okay, we're still going to draw a button and it's still going to say learn more, but you're going to be using colors that are good for your persona. When I say bring in an image, instead of bringing in headphones, you're going to bring in surfboards or whatever your product is. Okay, you're still going to have an image in a circle. So they're going to have the same structure, but at least at the end, you're going to have something kind of unique for your own portfolio. Plus, it's going to get you thinking about your own persona and how you might kind of design for them. Get the idea? So follow along in this course, but using your own company name, okay, which I'll get you to make a little bit later on, and picking your own images and colors for that brand. So once you've done it, you either take a screenshot of it or copy it to clipboard or download it as a PNG and just store it away on your computer or your phone, ready for later in the course. We're gonna put them together on a kind of a brief and task flow page later on. Another thing I want you to do, so we've got our kind of company name and persona. So you've downloaded it, copied it to clipboard, something, you've got it somewhere stored away. And let's bring in the task flow as well, because we're all using the same one. So it's gonna allow me to show you something strange, weird, I don't know, interesting for Figma. Figma really wants everything to be in the cloud online. Okay, so go back to your kind of home page, or if you're on a PC, go to the little Figma icon and go to the one that says, it's about here, it says go to files or something similar. Be on your drafts. And if you want to import a Figma file, okay, rather than it being shared with you, you see this little icon up here? It's import. Look for that icon. It has moved around in the past. Give it a click. Okay, and in your exercise files, there's one called taskflow.fig. Okay, load that in there and we'll use that later on as well. You can open it, have a look. Okay, basically it is just our task flow. Okay, and we'll copy and paste that and combine it later in the course. But you've got your task flow, you have got your own brief, or at least persona and name, and you're ready to carry on. So go do that as homework, and I will see you in the next video. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the difference between wireframes and high fidelity. Okay, well it's pretty easy, you can see. Wireframes are pretty budget and high fidelity mockups look really nice. And they'll call them hi-fi, lo-fi, okay? Generally though they'll call them wireframes. And hi-fi is high fidelity. Okay, this one's gonna be really quick and easy to make and test. Okay, and do not try and skip, if you're new to UX, skipping the wireframe section of your kind of design process at your peril. You can probably knock up a wireframe in a few minutes. Whereas high fidelity, you can end up kind of like playing with the tracking and leading for hours and hours, and you will not get a better, test out of your potential kind of audience. We've been assigned a task flow. We can really easily create a wireframe and test that task flow even on the app. I'll show you how to do that. It's like on a phone or on a website. Super quick, super easy, and no distracting like, oh, is that the right image? Is that the right font? I'm not sure about the colors. You're talking about the task flow, okay? Like the actual mechanics of how this is built underneath, and we can test it quickly with wireframes. Wireframes don't have to look like this. That's my wireframe. Another wireframe that I downloaded, a lot prettier. Buttons have got color in them. Ooh. Okay, pick one color only, gray and a color if you want, or stick to gray. You want to take away the design elements here and you spending time doing it, or at least, the client going, oh, I don't like pink, or this blue's not the right blue. You want to take all of that out of the equation when you're designing wireframes. Keep it simple. Pick a boring font and a boring color. Another wireframe, slightly nicer. Yeah, somebody spent some time on lots of kind of headings and stuff, and yeah, you can. There's no reason you can't take your wireframes further than what we do in this course. A really simple one that's kind of removed all the text. Okay, another sketchy one. Ooh, kind of sketchy. I think that's too close to Comic Sans for me, but I like the sketchy lines around the outside. So they're all lo-fi wireframes. Okay, hi-fi. It's in the same document. Okay, this one looks a lot prettier though. Okay, this one here, another hi-fi. A lot more time and effort going into this one. But for testing, you only need the basics, so that's why we're doing wireframes. And you have to do it, because that's the beginning of the course. We're gonna learn lots about how to use Figma, building the wireframes, before we start building our super beautiful things a little bit later in the course. All right, let's actually get started with Figma and do something. Okay, so let's make our first design file. So it can be a little confusing for this first screen. Yours is going to look different from mine because they change this quite often. If you have nothing like mine, you might go up to the top left hand here and click on the little drop down. If you're somewhere else, you might have to click on the home button first and then this little drop down. And what you're looking to do is to click on your name. Mine will be a bit blurry here because it's got my email addresses as well. But click on your name, not community, click here, and you should get to something resembling my screen. What we want to do is a new design file. That only appeared the other day. So what I've normally done in the past is we're going to create a drafts, okay, and it's this little plus, it's kind of next to it. Okay, so either way, we're making a new design file. Okay, and there we go. All right, if you're brand new, I've kind of reset my Figma, so all these little pop-ups. You can show stuff. I'm here to show you, so I'm going to cancel that. You end up with this big nothing screen. So we've got our design file. Okay, now we need to introduce frames. Frames are these guys here. It's this little icon here, third one in, click on it. Okay, and you can draw out any size frame. Think of a frame as a page. Okay, so if we're drawing an app, we're going to draw something kind of like, oh, go back to this tool here, draw out something that looks like an app. You can have multiple frames, okay? All sorts of different sizes. Desktop one, tablet one. So frames have many uses, okay? But at this early stage of the course, think of them as a page or an artboard if you're from Adobe land. And what we need to do is delete them because those are random sizes. Click anywhere in the inside of them and hit delete. Click them, delete them. All right, so go to your frame tool and actually let's be a little bit more specific with our sizes. Okay, over here you'll have some pre-made sizes. Okay, you are going to be in the future, so you might be at iPhone 52. Okay, I'm going to use iPhone 8. It's a nice generic size for both Android and Apple. Some of these big ones get a bit big and strange sized. Now the goal here is to pick a size that is generic. Okay, we're not going to design every different iPhone in different size. We're going to design something close enough to the general purpose phone, and our developer will build something that is a bit more responsive and will adjust for the kind of small changes in the different pixels. So pick a phone size that is quite generic. It's easiest just to Google like most common phone size, and you will get something, or most common desktop size, okay, and you will get something in here and pick it. If you're designing a watch, if you're doing kind of just regular old school paper, the wood stuff, okay, there's all sorts of things in here. So yours will be different. Now, I'm going to start with phone, and I'm going to start with iPhone 8, even though it's really old. I don't know why it's still in here. Hey, it is. But it's a good generic size. 375 pixels I like. You can adjust it afterwards. Here's your frame. Okay, and you can say, actually, the new size is not even listed there. I'm going to use 400 and just type over the top. I'm going to undo that because iPhone 8 is perfect for what I need. And again, if you're watching in the future and there's no like iPhone 8, you can type in this 375,667 to get the same dimensions, but hey, go with whatever is common for you right now. The other thing I tend to do is I try and at the meeting figure out what kind of phone my client has, because they're going to be potentially testing it on their phone. Okay, so I want to make sure like if they've got some sort of phone, I might use that just so that the mock-up works really great on their phone. So we're going to end up with naming loads of these frames because iPhone 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is not going to help us. So we're going to double click on the word up here, or you can double click over here in your layers panel. If you can't see the layers, you might be on assets. Okay, double click it, either one, and let's call this one. Remember our task flow. Okay, we're going to have our marketing page. We'll call it the home page. Homepage / marketing page. We want another one. So you can go back to your frame tool, click on iPhone 8 again, you'll get another one, and just keep going the way through. We're not going to do huge amounts of shortcuts in this course, but we're going to have to learn a few. The first one's going to be spacebar. So hold down spacebar. It's pretty common in lots of design programs, right? And click, hold, and drag. Okay, and I'm going to name it in this one. So remember, our task flow is marketing page, then product details. Another shortcut that we use quite a lot is you can just copy and paste these frames. So just click the name, Command C on a Mac or Control C on a PC, then V. So Command V, we've got another one, Control V on a PC. Okay, up to you. I say no shortcuts, and I start with lots of shortcuts. Let's put in our 4 pages. So our task flow said, we're gonna do that, product details, what else was there? It was a checkout. Okay, and copy, paste, spacebar, click and drag. We are going to do our confirmation. Cool. So in the same document, there's no reason why you can't then go, actually now I want my desktop version. Okay, so I'm going to click on frame. I'm going to say tablet, and I'm going to say we're going to be designing for the iPad Pro 12, because that's the one I own. Okay, and over here, landscape, portrait. Let's spacebar across, landscape, portrait. You can move them. Okay, I'm going to click the name. You drag the name, spacebar around, drag the name around. Okay, you might say copy, paste, and do the same thing. We're going to have home page, product details, same with like the desktop versions. I'm going fast here because we're going to delete them, so you don't need to. Maybe practice playing around with it, okay? If you see this one's iPad Pro at the moment, okay, you can click on this frame and say, actually, now you are a normal kind of standard desktop. That's a really good desktop size, okay? Really common and generic. Now, zooming in and out, Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and just hit the plus and minus keys, okay? There's a million different ways of doing lots of things here in Figma. I'm going to give you one way that I think is probably the easiest at your level, or just the generic best way. If you do find another way and you're horrified I'm not using the hold option, hold the command key down and use my scroll wheel, that's what I can do, to zoom in and out, you can do that. That's fine. But what I want you to do is, for this course, is I'm going to select all of these. And I'm just using this tool. It defaults to it every time, so you don't really need to pick it that much. I'm just going to delete it. This is where I want you to be at the end of this. If you end up in the middle of nowhere, I zoomed in into the middle of nowhere. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, use my space bar, get it right in the middle, and then zoom in. Okay, so this is what I want you to get to. I want just 4 boring old frames, okay, and I want you to name them all. And the last thing I want to show you, kind of kicking off this getting used to Figma, is naming your file. Just so you know, you're going to end up with lots of untitled documents. It just happens. I don't know, this program loves to have untitled documents. So we're going to be really specific and actually name them. If we click off in the background here, can you see it appears up there? If you've got something selected, it goes away. Have nothing selected, click in no man's land, and you can click up here and you can say, give it a name, okay? And you've already got your brief, right? So mine is Scott, yours is gonna be something different, but we're all gonna call ours Ecom V1. Okay, so you pick the name of your company and put Ecom V1, our e-commerce version 1. Just a V1, just something, ABC 1, 2, 3, it doesn't matter. As long as you're not like a final person, final one, final revisited, final. If you're laughing, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking to you. Give it some versioning numbers. There are some sweet features later on for like versioning within the document, but that's later on. Another thing is if you have got a bunch of untitles, you can, let's go back to, I want to explore this little house, or go back to the little house. Remember, make sure you're at your little name here and not community, okay? And what you'll notice is, look, there he is down there, Ecom1. If you've got lots of untitles already, okay, I've cleaned mine out, you can right click them and go to rename, and just do it there. Or open them up and do what we just did. Back to this tab, back to home. Get practicing that. Home base, into our work, kind of like a browser. All right, that is our basic setup. These are frames. The whole thing's called a design file. Frames have other sneaky settings that we'll talk about later in the course, but for the moment, consider them pages or artboards, but they call them frames. Onwards to the next video. Hi everyone, we're actually going to start making things in Figma now. And what I'm going to do over the next couple of videos is I'm going to introduce things like type in this one, and the next one's going to be like circles and buttons and colors, and just the stuff that we need to get going. We're not going to, I'm just going to, touch on them, and throughout the course, we'll get deeper and deeper into them rather than trying to like, I don't know, click every button to do with type in this video. We're going to get all the basics in, and when appropriate throughout the course, we'll dive a bit deeper into them. So let's get started. In this video, we're going to look at type and the various quirks in Figma. All right, so let's start off with the type tool. It's this letter T here. If you hover above stuff, can you see it says text, and the shortcut is T on my keyboard, so I can tap T on my keyboard. I'm not going to go through all the shortcuts, okay, but if there's one that you're using quite a lot, hover above it and it should tell you what it is. See for adding a comment. All right, so we've got 2 kinds of text boxes. You click once and you can type forever, okay? That is this one here. It is called a auto width box, because I know that off by heart. And the other type of box you're going to create is a click and drag box. Okay, so grab the type tool, click and drag it out. Okay, instead of clicking once, click and drag it, we get this option here, which is the fixed size box. Okay, and this one just means that when I get to the end, it will break. Okay, and we'll use both of these in this course, especially for this wireframe. So I'm going to undo. If you don't know, there's edit undo. If you're on the browser version, it is in here, edit undo. Okay, and you'll see the shortcut for it there. Undo, redo. So we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do auto width. Okay, so type tool, click once, and just type in your brand name. Okay, so mine is Scott Headphones. Okay, and when you finish, you can just kind of like click out in this no man's land. Okay, and you can move it around and stuff. Grab the type tool again, and let's do a box about this sort of size. Okay, and we're going to type in our marketing message. So just type in something like, this is our marketing message. You've got to be at this stage with things, it depends on who you're working for. It's best to keep everything very generic. Try not to use language, marketing speak here, because you might send off to testing, and instead of people testing like the flow, they might end up testing, coming back with spelling mistakes, or like, I don't know, there might be controversy about the marketing message. That's not right. Let's get it to copywriting. Okay, so at the moment, we're just going to keep everything as simple as we can to take out any sort of variables for our testing, just so that we're focused. Now, you can switch these later on. Let's say that this one here, we want to actually make it that auto width. Okay, so we can click it here. Same with this one, we can make it a fixed box. And the difference now is, watch this when I start typing, okay, kind of blows out of the box and it's got a fixed width. So you can change them later on. I'm gonna hit undo a couple of times. Okay, I'm using my shortcut Command Z on a Mac, Control Z on a PC to get back to, undos aren't as consistent as you would imagine from other programs. Undos, can you see the undo didn't put my rectangle back to the big size? It's undoing my type, okay, but it's not doing that big rectangle. This is pretty common throughout Figma. Sometimes you can like draw an arrow, change the arrowhead, hit undo, and that leaves the arrowhead there. This may change over time, but it's just one of those quirks about Figma. Sometimes if you hit undo, it decides not to always do what you ask. It does bits of it. So what I've got is I've got it selected with my selection tool. I've made sure it's a kind of fixed size. I'm going to drag it out so it's a bit bigger, because what I'd like it to do is I'm going to play around with just the basics here. Let's look at font size and the basics over here. I'm not going to cover them all because you know how to go font size. There's a little drop down. Look at that. Go to something nice and big. You might have to select your text first. So double click it, highlight it, and say over here, I'm going to make it nice and big. And because it's a fixed box, it's going to kind of break on the sides here. Left align, centered, you know, all that sort of stuff. One things I will show you is that, let's say things, if you hover above them, okay, that little icon there is the line height, okay, but you can click and drag them, any of the icons. So I'm going to undo that, undo again, there it goes. Okay, if you see the little icon, so over here, not draggable. Over here, on any of these little icons, you can click, hold, and drag them. So I tend to do this quite a lot, okay, when I'm working, and you'll see me throughout the course, okay, dragging line height and tracking and letter spacing and that sort of stuff. So that's one little trick. The other one I do quite a bit is, let's say this is not draggable. I wish it was, okay, but if you click in here and see my little cursor flashing, if I hit the arrow key on my keyboard, just the plain old up, down, left, right, use the up and the down, okay? If you hold shift, it goes up in big chunks, okay, in tens, units of tens. So that's true of like every box in here. If I want the width to be a bit wider, up and down, okay, or hold shift, go up in big chunks, and I'm making the width of this text box bigger. Undo, undo, wrecking my boxes. Okay, but for the fonts, I use it quite a bit, just kind of going up and down. I'm looking at my desktop. I'm not really looking over here. I'm just kind of checking, is this a good font size? Is that a good font size? Now, when it comes to fonts here, there's a couple of things. We are picking font sizes now. You've got to really be at 100%. At the moment, we're at 86. You might be at 100. But if you're picking font size, you're like, oh, that's too small. You've got to try and pick a font size at 100%. Okay, you don't want to be, trying to pick a font size when you zoom right out, because you can make it too big. And this, because this is going to be on a mobile device, okay, it's a mobile website. It's not an app, but it's only going to be viewed through a mobile website at this kind of ratio, this height. Okay, it's best to be actually picking font sizes on your phone. Okay, I'll show you a little bit later in the course. Not too far. We're going to actually preview everything on a device. Okay, so don't be spending too much time on deciding, was it 12? Should it be 16, 14? Actually get it onto the device and start looking. All right, the last thing I want to share with you when you are kind of at this font picking stage, especially for a wireframe, is I want you to pick a not font, a font that has 0 character. I feel bad because this is Roboto. Sorry, Roboto, you have 0 character. And I don't want, let's not go all brush script. Okay, or even if it's a beautiful font and it's exciting, okay, we want really plain fonts here, because when we do our testing, we want feedback not on like, hey, I don't like that font, or that's not communicating right. We don't want to, bring that into the conversation. We want to keep it all separate and just have it very, very simple. So it'd be really common to use something like Roboto or Open Sans. Let's have a look. Roboto, Open Sans. What's another one? Source Sans, Source. Okay, you can tell these guys are not the guys you invite to the party. Okay, they've got little personality. They're clear and they are professional and great for a wireframe, but they're no brush script. So whatever you decide, pick one. We're going to use Roboto for this because it's, the most generic of them all. Plus it has a lot of weights that you can play around with often. If you don't have Roboto, you can find it online, download it. It is, yeah, it is pretty common around the place, and it is free. You can use Arial or Calibri or whatever you want to use. Actually, you're not allowed to use Arial or Calibri. It's too Microsofty. All right, so we've picked a non-font. We're going to throw in a few different things for our mock-up. So we've got our, for our logo as well, we're just going to keep it super simple. Even if your company already has a brand, it's probably appropriate to throw it in black and white, just keep it simple. Because the brand isn't being developed yet for this company, we're just going to keep it super simple. I'm going to play around with fonts. Now, this is where I break all my own rules. Like, hey, don't pick a font that has character, stay away from, and then you can't help yourself. You're like, man, that leading's really big. If you want leading to go back to 0, just delete it and hit enter, and it goes back to auto. Okay, and even then you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, oh, wrong one. This one here, just take it over a little bit. I can't help myself. You, do as I say. Don't do as I do. Don't be playing around with letter spacing and stuff and making your wireframe looks good. Making your wireframe look really good. It's hard to stop that. You can do a little bit of design. So we need a couple of things. So we're going to keep that. We're going to copy and paste and use this again. Wow, that went weird. When you do copy and paste, did you notice that? So there's only one of them there now. If I copy and paste in Figma, it goes back over the top. So there's 2 of them right over the top. Okay, so it's a weirdness, but hey, it works. We're going to have a buy now button. Buy now. Now, I end up duplicating instead of copying and pasting. You may or may not do this. On a Mac, you hold down the Option key. You can see the little arrow. It's a little double arrow there. On a PC, it is your Option key. So if you do that before you start dragging, so Selection tool, hold down that key, Option or Alt, drag it out, and you get a second one. Figma is really good at lining things up. Can you see? Oh, so handy. Okay, we've got a Buy Now and a Learn More. Okay, we are going to go centered for that one. I need another one up here. That's going to be my product shot. I think that's all the text we're going to do for this particular mock-up. All right, so we will go into a little bit more text detail later on, but see this little dotted line down here? This is where you get into it's pretty amazing how deep it does go. If you're a designer who loves a bit of ligatures and all sorts of amazing things, you can see alignment, not that exciting. Decoration, underlines, strike throughs, nothing. Okay, so there's a lot. Bullet points are in here. You can start doing uppercase, lowercase. I won't cover them all. Okay, we will look at little bits throughout the course, but here's all if you really want to get into stylistic sets, and man, it gets deep. So most of it's just sitting here in your kind of right menu. They call it the right panel. Sometimes they call it the properties inspector. This thing here on the right, okay, you can get most of it just here. This little dotted line gets you a bunch more. All right, we've actually made something, kind of. A bunch of boring text. Let's get into the next video and make some boring rectangles and buttons. I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, this video, we're going to draw some rectangles and some circles and some rounded corners. It's very exciting. Let's jump in. All right, let's first of all put in our kind of product shot. We're going to put in a placeholder image for that. Okay, I'm going to use my selection tool, just click and drag over a bunch of them. Okay, and then I can drag it down. So I've got a bit of space. Okay, let's grab the rectangle tool. It's one of those ones that you'll probably learn the shortcut for. And they're all hiding in here. See, rectangle, lines, all the kind of basic shapes. Okay, so R is for the rectangle tool, which makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to click, hold, and drag it out, and you get the big gray box. And you'll notice our text disappeared. Okay, so this brings us to layering. Okay, so over here, if you can't see it, you might be on Assets, go to Layers. You'll see there's my home page frame. Okay, and inside of that are all these different things. Okay, all the different text we've added. Now we've got a rectangle, but it's on top. So we can do a couple of things, right click and say, send to the back, please. And it's just that shortcut. You'll learn that one quite a bit as well. Learn the different shortcuts at your level. You might be ready for shortcuts, you might be not. You might be freaking out. So just right click and say, actually send to the back. Or I want you to practice, I've undone that. Can you see here? I can drag this, kind of like more like Photoshop. I'm holding it, dragging it. Now it's at the bottom of all those guys and I can see it, easy. I'm going to undo it and show you just one more painful way, mainly because there is a ton of ways of doing everything in Figma. Okay, and I'm going to show you the way that I think makes most sense for your level and what's really common and useful. But if you find a different way and you're like, hey, why didn't he show us that way? That's heaps better. Okay, if you find it and you like it, you can do it. Okay, but let's say this one here, it says a little Figma menu here. If you're on a Mac, you've got this top bit along the top here, which is exactly the same as edit. Where is it? Arrange. You can see how, no, I don't want arrange. Object. There it is there. You can see how much I use this menu. Not very often. Okay, so you can, on a Mac, you'll see these along the top and they will correspond. See file, there's file, edit, there's edit. So often I use these ones along the top here, but I know if you're using the browser version, these aren't there. On a PC, these aren't there. These are exactly the same. So I'll try to remember through this course that I'm going to go to object, send to backwards. Okay, but you might find in this course that Dan's going up to arrange up the top here and you're like, hey, I don't have that. There it is there. Look. Okay, so I'm going to go object, send to back. Yeah, loads of ways of doing the same thing. Let's kind of get that in the middle there. You'll notice that Figma is just really naturally wanting to go to the center of things, center of boxes, center of artboards. You just drag it around. You don't have to do a lot. There are the full-on arranges along the top here, kind of, arrange center, arrange to the left, but often just dragging it around does perfectly well. All right, let's do our buttons down the bottom here. So I'm going to zoom in, Command plus or Control plus on a PC, and I'm going to hold my spacebar key down and click and drag. Okay, R for the rectangle tool, or just go up there, drag it around. We know that it is on top. You can drag it over here. What's the shortcut? It's a test, okay? What's the shortcut to go all the way to the back? It's that square bracket next to P on your keyboard. There it is, down, up is the other one, down, up, down. Cool, so I've got that button. I'm going to hold down my Option key and drag out another one. You might have to resize this. Okay, I want to move on to rounded corners because when I said do not, whatever you do, don't design this thing, okay? It's hard because you're like, I want rounded corners. You're not the boss of me, Dan. I'm going to make some little design choices. Okay, so with the rectangle selected, you might notice these little dots. If you don't see these little dots, if I zoom right out, minus, you see they go away. So those little dots in the corners help with rounded corners. If you can't see them, just keep zooming in. Look, still can't see them. Oh, are they there? Yeah, they're there. Zoom out. There's a level. Yeah, look there. They're not there. Zoom one more in. I can grab them and drag them. Okay, and you're like, there you go. Nice rounded corners. You can do it. I'm going to go zoom all the way out to 100%. The shortcut is, where is it? So this is the long way, 100%. See this? Shift. That little arrow key is shift. I was like, what is that one? Especially on a Mac, I'm like, what the hang is that guy? I have to look at my keyboard. Luckily, it's written on it. You think I'd know. But so shift 0, okay, on the top there goes to 100% because that's probably a better place to be designing rounded corners because you're like, that's the way it's going to look. So if I'm doing it here, I can actually just do it here in my kind of property inspector here, this right panel. And I can say, actually, let's try it, use my arrow keys. Remember the sweet shortcut, up one. Oh, how does it look? Up another one. Smashing it up, down. Okay, so I'm going to just put in some rounded corners, 5. It's handy because you can get consistency. Select this other one, go 5. Click on this one. They're all going to have 5 rounded corners. Look at that. Because we are doing rounded corners, it's not appropriate right now, but if I click on this, zoom in enough so I can see this radius, you can actually hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, and actually just click one of them and go, look at that. Undo it because we don't need it right now, but you probably had that question, like, can I do one by itself? You can. Just hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, okay, and click it and drag it. There we go. And before we go, let's add our little circle down the bottom here. So the circle tool, the ellipse is the O. Okay, I'm gonna drag it out. Another thing that I haven't quite covered yet, if you want it to be completely circular or square, okay, you hold down the Shift key while you're dragging. So watch this. I'm gonna go back to my circle tool. And before I start dragging, hold down the Shift key, drag it out, and you can see perfect circle. If I let go of it, ellipse, okay, or oval. Back to holding Shift, I'm going to get it about that. And for the moment, I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to grab my Type tool, okay, and click once. And I'm going to hit my plus, and I'm going to pick an appropriate font size. Now with Type, okay, I want to move it. And it's just going to kind of select it. So click off in the background, and then kind of just drag it to where you want. Font size, in here, I'm using my up arrow to get it to a kind of a size that I want. Bold's kind of weird for that. There we go. All right, that is gonna be good enough for this video. Circles, exciting. Rectangles. Ooh, one little bonus thing for circles. I was gonna do this later, but look at this. See the circle? What's that thing do? You probably already dragged it, you ready? Num, 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 num. Absolutely useless, never used it. I can see, I'm like, yeah, that does a bar graph. I have not mocked up a bar graph before. So, sorry, pie chart is what I want. Okay, so you can, that's what that thing does. Anyway, let's get on to the next video. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to do the most basic of micro interactions. Basically, it's so basic, is this even a micro interaction? A hover. Okay, they're called interactive components inside of Figma. This one is a hover, as you can see, and this one here is just click on and off. Up until now, we've had to choose a variant to start with, and we haven't had this kind of like lovely interaction. But now we do. Let me show you how to make them. Hi everyone, first thing is that this feature that I'm showing you here is new for Figma. It actually hasn't come out yet, it's still in beta. Okay, depending on how long in the future you're watching this, it'll either just work flawlessly, okay, or you might have to turn it on. If some of the features aren't around, just go to Figma and we'll do a Google search for, looking for something called Interactive Components Beta and ask to be part of the program. It takes about a week and then they seem to be letting any old person in. They let me in. Okay, but in the future, this might just work. So we're gonna kind of start with that. So I'm gonna undo and we'll get started for real. Okay, so what I wanna do is just do a really bare bones version just so I can show how it works, and then we'll do some more detailed things as we go. So I've just got a blank document because the other one was getting messy, and I've called it micro interactions. And I'm just gonna start with a rectangle. We're gonna do that button thing you saw at the beginning. And I'm really just gonna do bare bones. So we'll start with a button that is gray, okay? And we will turn it into a component. So we're gonna rely on some of the stuff we already know. Okay, so a button needs to be a component. How do you do a variable? That's what we need to start with, because interactive components is just a way of switching variables. So to make a variable, we have to start with a component. That component has to be turned into a variable. Okay, and there needs to be two variants, or a minimum of two. Okay, this one here, I'm just gonna double click and change the color off. Okay, so I've got two colors, and this is kind of where we got up to before. That is a variant, and what we were able to do up until recently is only we could go, here's my component, I can pick whether it is this variant or this variant. And we had to kind of just do it. There was no interactivity between the two, which is weird, huh? Like this new feature feels like it, I don't know, very important part of our prototypes. But anyway, so what we need to do now is to make that actually interactive. Okay, for this interactive component, what we do is we go inside of here. Okay, this is my component set. Remember the dots are on the outside. Go to prototype, go inside my component set. Okay, and these are the two versions. You can see these dots appearing. Well, up until now, we could only go to other frames. Okay, but now we can go to other components and use things like, instead of on tap, while hovering. If you can't see while hovering, it means you are not part of the beta. Okay, and you might have to go and ask for access if you want to do this. Otherwise, wait around, it'll be out soon. And they might change the naming of it in here. So just look in here. Some of them is going to say something to do with hovering. Okay, it might not say while hovering, but they reserve the right to change it in beta. Okay, so while hovering, I am going to change to variant 2. And that's it. Okay, let's give it a go. So let's preview this one. I say it's going to work. It's not going to work. Okay, or it does. Okay, if yours doesn't work, look at that. I'm hovering. I'm not doing anything. That's the sweet new Figma thing called interactive components. Super helpful. A long time coming. Okay, if you can't see yours, it's because you only have this there. I have this version of it. While I was explaining to you, I dragged one out. So you might only have this first kind of component set. You might have to drag out from your assets panel the actual button. And you should really be on its own page. Okay, so let's go to this one now. And there we go, while hovering. Let's do another simple one. Okay, it's going to be whilst clicking, or at least on tap. So I'm going to go and steal something from my last document. Okay, I went and stole this checkbox from one of the, I think I originally stole it from Microsoft's kind of community one. Anyway, it is just, let's go look at the layers. It is just a rectangle and a tick box. Okay, currently they're inside of a frame, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to select both of them, make sure it's a component. Okay, make sure there's two variants of it. The second variant, I'm going to double click to delete the tick. And that's kind of what we did before, right? We made this little thing and we get to decide whether it's ticked on or ticked off. So to add the interactivity, just like we did before, switch to prototype, Option 9, okay, or Alt 9, and say I've double clicked to go inside the component set to say you go there. When do you go there? On tap. It's done it already. Okay, on tap, change to variant 2. Instantly, yeah, why not? Dissolve is not going to be that exciting. Okay, but let's give it a preview. So I'm going to drag out an instance. Okay, so I've already got one there. And let's preview it. My preview should be already open. And watch. Oh, look how cool that is. Why doesn't it go back down? Okay, so it went one way. If I reset it for R, okay, it goes off but not back on. How do we do that? Basically, if you want it to toggle, okay, go back and forth, you basically just go to this. So we've got one dragging from here to here. Let's just get one going back to this way. And it will remember the last thing you've done. So it's going to remember on tap change to, and it's going to go to this new one. So hopefully it just works. Let's go. Toggle, 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 toggle. Hey, super basic micro interactions. Really, this is just interactive components. This is as basic as it gets. We'll do some more micro interaction-y bits in the next video. But that is interactive components inside of Figma. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to make this like little toggle switch, okay, so that turns on and off and it animates and changes color. So very similar to the last video, but a little bit more exciting and probably a little bit more micro interaction-ness because it's going green to help us communicate that it's actually turned on. All right, let's get going. All right, to save time, I've put a circle with a rectangle with rounded corners, played with some sweet drop shadows and some lovely gradients. Okay, so we're going to start at this point. Okay, so remember to make a variant needs to be a component first, make a variant. This variant needs to be different, and all I'm going to do is move this over here. And the only difference between this and the last video is we need to, when we join them up, okay, prototype, okay, I'm going to click on this one on the inside. So I double click it to go inside the set. You go over there. And on tap change to, we've been using instant, which is the default, but we can use smart animate. It's the only difference, and it's going to do our lovely, the animation that we're used to. And while we're here, we might as well get it to go back to do the same thing. Let's give it a preview. Okay. Oh, you can't preview the set. Okay, the component set. We're going to drag out a instance of it. Now that should work. Ready? Ooh, feels nice, huh? That's good. I'm going to fancy it up. So that's a micro interaction. I feel like it's more a micro interaction if we do something with the color. Okay, and let's have a look. So design, linear. Let's kind of indicate that it's turned on to kind of make it a bit clearer. Here we go. We're going to go something. We're going to spend way too long picking colors. That's what we're going to do. Is it green enough? I think I've gone for too much of an aqua. Anyway, let's go have a look. This one, and we go on, off. Oh, look at that. Look at us making stuff. It's pretty small, but you're probably zoomed in. There you go. You might have it red on one side and green on the other. It's just really helping us know that the thing that we've ticked next to is actually turned on, and that smart animate works nicely. All right, let's do an extra special fancy one in the next video. Yeah, let's go and do that now. Oh, before we go, I've been really lazy with my naming conventions. I guess I want to, a couple of things to remember. The same rules apply. If you want to go between this and this, the layers need to be the same. So if yours stops working at any stage, it's because you've got component, where is it? Let's get rid of you. So there's my component set. I can tell it's the master because of that icon, and I've got variant 1 and default. So first of all, let's tidy that up. So we can name it over here. We might call this one, instead of variant 2, the property is going to be on. And this one over here is going to be off. So that's one thing that's going to make this nicer. So when we are kind of rigging this up and trying to drag it over to different places, you will see drag, change to, you can see we've got my little toggle switch now on and off. That might be helpful. Okay, the other thing is that this one's called ellipse 10, this is called ellipse 10. If I end up accidentally changing it or grouping it, it's gonna break. So let's give that a go. No worky. Okay, so just make sure that these are the same between the two variants. Okay, the same sort of problems we had when we're doing animation between frames and between these little variants, the same structure, the same rules apply. And again, let's have a look at our component design. What do we got? It's called component 1, terrible name for it. It's going to be my toggle switch. And instead of variance is, what do you call that? Value? You know, that's my default for like, not sure what to call this. Turned onness. You get the idea. So yeah, we came back to name, just to remind people to name things better than just leaving it default and then variant 2. All right, now let's go make something a bit more exciting in the next video. Hi everyone, brace yourselves. We're going to go from stripy burger menu, snav sandwichy thing to ooh, crisscrossy thing. It's going to animate, it's going to change color, the outside shape's going to change. It is totally a rite of passage to make this animation. Everybody does it. It is amazing. It looks cool. I could click it all day. It's cool, huh? All right, let's jump in and show you how to make it. Okay, so the trick with this one is there is no trick. It's the same as our little toggle switch. It's just that smart animate, but I'm going to take, well, not longer, but I'm just going to work your way through it just so you get the idea of how to make it. And plus it's like a rite of passage, that little burger menu animation. So I'm going to start with a rectangle or a frame, doesn't matter. Around the corners all the way around. Color-wise, yeah, that'll do. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our little lines. I'm going to use L for the line tool. I'm going to hold shift to drag them across. I'm going to make 3 of them. Command D, Alt drag the first one, or Option drag the first one. Command D, let's select all 3 of them. I'm going to go 2. And I need to really have a test of how far apart these need to be. Select them all. Let's tidy them up. All right, that's going to be my start. I'm going to start with, I don't know, some brand specific color. Let's go like this. Okay, and just like before, we need to have a component. There needs to be variance between them. Okay, and this variant, basically what we do is this middle one you can either delete or lower the opacity down to 0. Okay, so it goes away, or decide that it slides off or do something else. With these 2 lines, I'm double clicking to go inside my components. Okay, is basically what I want to do is I want to, don't click in too much. I want to get this, I want to hover on the outside so I can get this. And I want to get it to, who remembers how to get it to go to like 45 degrees is what I want. Yeah, that's it, holding shift. Okay, you can kind of tell by looking at it and it says it up there. So there's that one, there's this one, 45 degrees as well. Now I'm going to line them up-ish, get them in the middle-ish. They're not aligned. Let's go that way. Does that look good? It does not. That one needs to go that way a bit. Aligned again. Horizontal, vertical. There you go. Okay, and I'm going to change them to, let's go for you. Let's change it to red. I want that. I want extra micro interaction goodness. I want it to kind of like red to close, green to kind of get started. And let's go full roundy. Okay, so instead of changing to a circle, you can actually make a circle by going rectangle tool and all of the, we talked about this earlier, but all of the rounded corners. As long as you're above, doesn't matter how much, you can put 2000 in there. Okay, as long as it's kind of goes past being a rectangle to a circle. So the magic happens is this prototyping bit. Okay, remember, so I'm going to click inside to grab my first variant. You are going to go there, and it's the same on tap, change to, but instead of instant, it's going to be smart animate. Same with this one here. When I click this one, go back over there, and it's going to remember what I did. Let's give it a little preview. Okay, and let's go. Remember, you need an instance dragged out of it. Okay, because you can't preview the component set. So let's go in here, and you're ready. Where is it? There it is. Whoop. Ah, it's a rite of passage. So is. That one will impress your colleagues, your friends. Look how nice it is. Goes from a square to a circle. It also does that kind of like lines sliding over each other to cross. All right. So that is taking this kind of, I don't know, the micro interaction thing to its next level, something that looks quite fancy. Same principles, prototyping instead of from frames, just to different variants of a component set, okay, instead of over to pages. And then just changing it to smart animate to get that. Oh, click that all day. All right, that is it. I will see you in the next video. Hey gang, it is time for a class project. Okay, this one is micro interactions. Okay, I want you to do two. Do the burger menu and across. Like I said, it is the rite of passage if you haven't done it already. Okay, it is this one. Okay, lines to across. You do your own version. Okay, well, just do that. Okay, but then I want you to do your own one. Okay, the custom interaction can be anything you like. Okay, so it could be a kind of a toggle switch. What I want you to do is go and have a little look. Go look for a Google search for micro interactions or 20 best micro interactions or most exciting, and to see if you can recreate one. Okay, and it's going to be for your actual Figma file. So go have a look about, what could be done. Maybe it's this button here. Maybe it's that purchase button. Maybe it's on the congratulations page. Something to do with the stars. Yours is starting to look a bit different from mine now. Okay, because you've been using your own products. Okay, so have a think, have a bit of an explore, and I'd like you to create both the burger menu into cross and your own one. And then when you're done, send me screenshots of the component set. Okay, if you can't work out how to do like a video animation, what I mean by that is send me a screenshot of this. But if you can, I'd love to see a video, okay, of the thing working, you interacting with it. All right, go forth, make a little interaction, and I will see you in the next video. After you've done your homework, go do that. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go from the thumbnail here that we've been using, okay, which is for me not pretty representative of what we're doing, okay, from this one to that one, okay, which is a little bit more representative of the actual file inside. Sometimes it can be very obvious what's in the file and sometimes not so obvious. So a customized thumbnail can be handy. Let me show you how. Okay, it's probably driving you just as mad. The thumbnails here are fine, okay, sometimes, but then they end up like the moment it's showing me stuff that I made a long time ago. It's on my kind of task flow / brief page, okay, and it's not really indicative of what's actually in the document. That one, not helpful, okay. Basically, this thumbnail is using the first page in your document. So I open it up. I just find it hard later on to go, which one was I working like? That's not helpful, it's just too small. Okay, so what you can do is you can modify it. So I'm gonna go into it. What it's using at the moment is whatever's on the first page on the first frame. Okay, so it's using this thing on mine. So what we can do to update it, we can just go to a frame and say, right click and say use a thumbnail. Okay, so that's a way of doing it. Problem is it's only gonna use that one frame. So what you tend to do is you make a whole page for it. You're going to call this my cover page or cover thumbnail. You can call it anything you like. Put it at the top. Okay, and in here there is a frame default under Figma community called file cover. That's all we want. That matches the size back out here. Okay, so and you can put anything in you like in there. I'm reluctant to go and start copying a chunk of this. Why? Because I don't know, I've got more instances of these things, and what I tend to do, you can just copy and paste this and stick it on that page. Okay, what I tend to do is just do a screenshot of kind of appropriateness. So I'm going to do, on a Mac it's Command-Shift-4. On a PC I think you print screen and then paste it in something. You'll have to double check. Okay, so I'm going to screenshot that, go to my cover page and dump it on there. Okay, so Command-Shift-K, import. I got a screenshot. There it is. Okay, and I'm going to, how big is it? Click once. Not very big. Okay, so I'm going to stick it inside my frame. What I'm going to do is, like, I don't know. It feels like part of the legend of being a UX designer, okay, is you need to, it has to be tilted on the side. Like a gun in like movies. You need to kind of, you're not a real UX designer if you have your stuff straight. It has to be on the side. Cocked to an angle. Okay, so that's going to be my one. And then I can right click this and say set as thumbnail. It's the right size. What you'll also see is, can you see the little icon changes? There's this teeny tiny little, I don't know what that is. It's the little was it the card that appears in here. Now, it never, well, for me, in my version, I'm using a beta version, so this could just be in mine. It doesn't update straight away. I'm gonna close this down and open it back up. Wait there, and we're back, and it worked. Okay, so there, look at that. All on the side and customized. Look at us. Obviously some of them work just fine, but there we go. Another thing you can do is, let's open this up. You could take a screenshot of the actual presentation. Okay, you might want to see it inside of the frame, which might be nice. Not that page. Here we go. This one here. So if we do this and present, take a screenshot of this page, might look nicer. Still has to be on an angle. How much of an angle? I'm not sure the degrees. I'm not in the high echelons of UX designers yet to know the degrees. It's like a secret recipe formula. Anyway, I'm waffling. That is how to update the thumbnail in Figma files. Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at exporting images from Figma. Kind of a general purpose exporting images. We'll look at some more specific use cases for developers and colleagues and stuff in upcoming videos, but yeah, let's do this general purpose one. So you can export anything. Let's have a look, this logo. I need the logo exported. What you need to do is, other programs you'd select it and go file export, something like that. This one here you apply export settings to. So I said you selected, I'm going to apply some settings to it, and then you can go through and pick. This is the main one, okay, what kind of format it is. PNG, JPEG, SVG, or PDF. Okay, if you're new to it, SVG is scalable vector graphics, great for things like logos and icons, because they are like resolution independent. That's the wrong key, scale. Okay, you can see they get bigger and bigger without pixelating. In the past, you probably would have used a PNG because that allows, can you see some transparency around the background as opposed to JPEGs. Now this preview kind of updates. I think you have to like click off it, click on again. Let's go off, on. Let's have a look at the preview. It's still there. It's showing me the background. Anyway, this will export with a solid background. It won't be clear. So SVGs, when you can do them, icons great, logos great, anything that's that kind of vectory, simple straight lines, that's what SVG is, right? Scalable vector graphic. And PNGs are helpful for, I'll show you, let's do JPEG because that's the opposite of a PNG as a JPEG, okay, and an SVG. So JPEGs are really good if there is no need for transparency and you've got a lot of color information, something like this. SVG won't know what to do with it, okay, because it's not a vector graphic, like these kind of like linear shapes of text and icons. So JPEGs first, best for this. JPEGs have loads of colors, they can be compressed nice and small, they look great. So I'd say export, and I'd say you are a JPEG. What you'll notice is the name here, like if I want to export this, I just click the button and it tells me, here you go, export this thing. I'm putting my images here on just an empty folder on my desktop. You'll notice that it comes, the layer name over here is what Figma will use for the name of your file. So I can save it there. Let's have a little look. Okay, and there's my JPEG. Now, how big is it going to be? Figma is not really made for compressing this down. You might have to use something else. Okay, something like tiny JPG is a good solution, or using something like Photoshop to get the file size down. They can be a little bit chunky coming out of Figma. You also notice that's the file name. So if you want to be clever, okay, you can go in here and let's call this one IMG woman 1. Okay, and now when I go to export, it'll use that kind of naming convention. All right, JPEGs, good for images with no transparency. SVG is good for any sort of vector linear stuff. When we use a PNG, PNGs are great for the kind of half and half. So this one here has round, it's a circle and it has transparency, so I can't use a JPEG. So this image here can't be an SVG or a JPEG, so it has to be that PNG because it'll allow transparency around the outside. So other things that we haven't talked about is the sizing guide here. Okay, this will depend on, let's say web design. Often you'll supply your web developer with a 1x and a 2x, depending on how they are making the site, how they are dealing with responsive images. This is a question you'll have to talk to with the developer. Okay, you know, do you want it just cut the middle and be 1.5 and not have any sort of changing of images? It just means there's some monitors that the image will look great at this kind of smaller 1x size. And by 1x, it is going to be 174 by 174. If I export this one, okay, it is going to be double that size. Okay, which just means on fancy new laptops or computers, which is most of them now, it will look better. And that 1x will load fast and then be small, but won't look as great. So often you can add more than one. So I'm going to export this PNG in both 1 and 2x. Suffix, okay, that's a common practice for adding. So it's going to be still called ellipse 2, okay, but one of them is going to have no suffix at the end. You might do this to be clear with yourself. And a suffix just means it's going to go on the end, okay. Let's stick it in there. Let's have a little look. So I'm going to switch to list view. So we've got 1x and 2x. Can you see the file size differences? Still got transparency. You can kind of see the quality difference. It'll be a little hard on this video, but I'm sure you can see all the big pixels. This is getting a little bit old. Now most websites will probably try and do this 2x. Not always. Other things that are useful when you are exporting. Let's say that I want to export this. I'm going to double click. I want to export just this kind of circle again. So I'm going to go, oh, yep, I need that. What is it? PNG, transparency. There is an option in here that says, see these little dotted lines? You can say actually ignore overlapping layers. But if I turn it off, watch this icon down here. There you go. It's gonna, it's grabbed the back part of that image. It's also grabbed the green box and all this other stuff. So it depends. Basically, it's using the edges of the ellipse and grabbing everything else that overlaps. So you may or may not need it. I show everybody, I never need it. There'll be some time you need it. We talked about 1x and 2x, but let's say you do want, say you've got an icon. I'm just gonna grab one out of here. What do we got? I got this. I don't even remember where I made that. Okay, so I got it from somewhere. Let's say I need to export this. Okay, I'm going to export, but instead of being an SVG, I've been asked to be supplied at a specific size. So I'm going to be a PNG, so it still has transparency. It should really be an SVG. But let's just say in here, instead of 1x, we can type it in. We can say I want it to be, a width of 500. So you put a W at the end or an H for the height. Okay, you want it to be 500 pixels high or 500 pixels wide. Okay, and that will just force it. It assumes pixels. Okay, so let's do that. And let's do another one. And that is going to be, say, 100 pixels, maybe for a thumbnail version of it. Let's export both PNGs. I've left the suffix on there as at ×2, which is not good. Okay, but there it is there. That's my white version. You can barely see it. That's the big version. You can see the wheels. They have transparency. Okay, but one is obviously 1,000 pixels, or 500